Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tom Backus. I'm here with Ali Rosman from Throughput and Jose Serra from Cementos Progresos. We're here to kind of talk through some of the things that a lot of us have been challenged with in the past couple of years in terms of pulling together the right data to drive value for our customers and partners, and some of the challenges that we've had working with partners and suppliers, both downstream and upstream. So I'm going to kind of host a little bit and facilitate some of the conversation and provide Microsoft point of view. But I really want to spend the time focusing on Throughput's capabilities and the work that they've done with Cementos and Progresos. Really impressive. So just quick introduction about myself. I'm Tom Backus. I lead supply chain strategy at Microsoft for worldwide retail and consumer goods. I'll pass it over to Ali.
Thanks, Tom, and it's a pleasure to be joining Microsoft and Progresso today to talk more about how we've helped them and used the Azure cloud to improve the overall state of supply chain. Quick background about myself, CEO of Throughput. I actually come from a cementing background. I used to pump liner hanger jobs offshore off the coast of Dubai for Schlumberger for several years. So this is an industry that's very dear to my heart, and we've been very fortunate to work with Jose Serra's team over at Cementos Progresso. With that, I'll turn it over to Jose to talk more about his role within the company, Cementos Progresso, their vision for the world, and share more about what we did. Over to you, Jose.
Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you also for the invitation. Okay, Jose Serra, I'm the CIO for Grupo Progreso, which Cementos Progreso is part of. We are a company based here in Guatemala. We have been here more than 120 years, so it's really a robust, we can say, a company here within Guatemala. We're expanding. We have not only cement business, but also related type of companies or business, which is ready mix. We have lime, and also the last year we are also moving into a retail side of business. So right here, like I told you, I've been here in this position as a CIO. It's gonna be 13 years, I guess, this year, and it's been a really good challenge, to run this IT and architectural side of the company. So thank you again for this invitation.
Thanks, Jose. And I think one of the most unique things that we enjoyed seeing with Cementos Progresso is the end-to-end nature of both their physical operations, as you talked about with the multiple units, as well as the digital side, where you're truly end-to-end optimized or running on multiple instances, but getting that whole picture from the raw materials at the quarries all the way to your hardware stores, right? And the equivalent in the US could be thinking of it as like a mining company tied to the cement manufacturer, tied to the Home Depot stores. So it's a very exciting use case. Maybe Tom, you could talk more about how Microsoft has been enabling the supply chain cloud and companies like Throughput to work with companies like Cementos Progresso at the C-suite level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you bring up a really good point there, Ali, right? Is that, when you think about the way supply chains have been designed for decades, really, it's always optimized for efficiency and service and cost. And the challenge that when you think about everything shutting down for the past couple of years has exposed a lot of the cracks and vulnerabilities, right? And it takes a really strong understanding of, what does your partner relationship look like through your end-to-end supply chain? Where does your data sit? How do you extract all the right insights, which can be very challenging to do. So it's definitely not one partnership. It's when you look at the three of us coming together, from the dynamics perspective or just from the cloud perspective in general, democratizing a lot of that information, making it readily available to a lot of parts of the organization to drive insights, and then working with partners like Throughput to be able to take the right insights and turning into action. The partnership that I've seen in the past 2 years among organizations is really, it was kind of, I'd say, accelerated by all the challenges that we've seen globally. And I think it's putting us towards a pretty exciting future.
Thanks, Tom. And maybe, Jose, you could highlight, as the CIO of the company who sees every business unit, why you ended up picking a company like Throughput from a business perspective, right? Because what we're seeing as supply chains become more digitized, it's not just about tracking the data, but ultimately impacting the free cash flow of the business, influencing the capital expenditure strategy of the business, and ultimately the earnings of the business. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, how do we end up working with you? It's because, like I told you, it's a very, we can say, a robust and sometimes complex not only the business side, but also the architectural side. So within the group, the Progreso group, we have a special team who's called Progreso X. They're responsible of doing these exponential change makers, where each year we choose a special or a specific problem within the company, and we start to look outside of the company and outside of our, we can say, normal providers who can help us with that specific issue that we have. So last year we did our second cycle, innovation cycle, or exponential change maker cycle, and it was based on how do we optimize the supply chain, and that's how you guys came here to Progreso. And we have a specific issue, which was how to really evaluate if we need more trucks, you know, to distribute our products. And Throughput came with a really interesting, we can say, data model, you know, to extract all the information that we have here, and at the end to see if it was necessary to buy that amount of trucks. So that's basically how we end up working with Throughput. And not only you guys help us just to see if it was necessary or not, we end up looking, because of the size of the information, or the amount of the information that we have, we end up looking also inventories, you know, to see where we can just to optimize, and where we can optimize those kind of inventories, and not only the truck side, but also the we can say the inventory side. So that's how we end up working with Throughput.
Thanks, Jose. And I think this brings back to the platforms like Dynamics, right? Who sit downstream on the retail side and tie back to the supply chains. And just maybe Tom on that, just the ability to sense demand, to essentially figure out what's selling down at your end retail point, say at their case, the concert facilities, right? Their equivalent of the hardware stores, and tying it back all the way to the quarries or the manufacturing to see what that rolled throughput yield is for the entire company. Maybe you could shed some lights on what Microsoft's been doing on the dynamic side and on the sustainability side there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are two great points. So I think that you know, there's a ton of reliance, and rightfully so, on historical data to inform future decision making, right? And there's a lot of truth to that. But the reality is the challenges that we've seen in terms of kind of start and stop, whether it's things like construction projects or where we've been able to actually distribute goods in different parts of the globe over the past couple of years, has exposed us to the idea that you can't always rely on historical data. And in fact, the recency bias to what's going on in the world, it's much more important to look at the actual channels in a much more granular sense in a near-time fashion, right? So taking that information has been very hard to look across your end-to-end supply chain and draw the right insights to give to the right folks, because traditionally supply chains are all built in those silos. So there's a planning team and a making team and a source and delivery. And now it's how do we actually stitch together a digital thread that not only can be sharing the information, but then give you the right information to tell you that our sourcing and suppliers and manufacturers, this is actually the pattern that we need to follow moving forward. And this is how we need to construct the POs. And this is how we need to time the deliveries. Those things are all real critical because we expect that demand patterns are going to continue to fluctuate as we move forward. And it's really important to kind of stay in front of the technologies that are going to give us the insights to it versus trying to rely on what's happened in the past to predict future performance.
Thanks, Tom. And of course, the historical data helps with sort of painting what the ground realities really are from a capacity perspective. And, you know, there were a lot of trucks involved here. So Jose, you know this process better than anyone who spent looking at 13 different business units with different timestamp data. Could you maybe just walk us through the challenges, of course, and the ground realities of getting something this impressive done, right? In terms of tying it from the raw materials all the way to retail, what your IT team had to do to make the possibilities happen, right, from an end-to-end optimization perspective.
Okay, as Tom mentioned before, the reality is that most of our processes, we don't have it under one system, you know. Depends on the line of business, depends on also on the necessities of the business. We have different providers or solution providers. We have a heavy SAP footprint, if we can say that, but we are in the last year, we are being more open, to bring different solutions depending on the business needs. So one of the main challenges it was we had to extract this information from different solutions, not only extracting that information, but putting it to some place, to consolidate that information. And also the master data was really, I think, was one of the main issues, that we have. But once we deal with that, I guess it was really easy for the throughput and all these solutions just to consume that information and getting back to us some, well, we can say information that we can evaluate and make good choices, to make decisions based on that information. But it was the main challenge was just to identify where the information was, to extract it and to put it into one place,
Yeah, makes sense. And Jose, just compared to some of the other projects you might have been running, such as the IoT optimization at local level, or maybe kiln optimization, how would you say an approach that goes end to end, like a Throughput and Microsoft Azure-based system, differs in terms of value generation versus saying putting stickers or RFID tags on everything? Could you maybe talk to the pros and cons of both approaches and the needs?
Well, I think that the approach that we decided with you guys, Throughput, it was the best way to do it, in terms that we have different, like I mentioned before, we have different sources of information. So I think that was the best way to do it. In terms of, as you mentioned, put it just maybe sensors, IoT, it was like Tom mentioned before, more like a silo solution, or maybe like that. But here, as we mentioned before, the whole approach of this is how do we optimize the whole supply chain. So when you mention and when you say this whole supply chain has to be end to end, and that's what's the challenge, because different line of business, different people, different solutions, different data. So it was how do we put this into just one system or under one system and getting or extracting value from that information. So I think it was the best way to do it, because it was a diverse of everything, client, customers, everything.
I think one of the questions, and of course the beauty of doing it all remotely over the cloud, right, was we could be sitting here in Palo Alto and our team in Seattle, and even though we came and visited the sites, I think what was the ease of just using a remote system, a cloud-based system, to getting these these analytics done to you versus having stuff on premise and having a lot of people taking up a lot of your day, right? So could you maybe talk to the benefits of using a cloud system, right, to be able to collaborate across, essentially internationally, across two countries to come up with something that I consider a breakthrough in the industry?
Yeah, for sure, it was easier for us, working this way. Most of the weekly meeting was just like this, and also because we were working on a cloud-based system, it was also not only easier, but it was faster, just to be or working in some clouds. This time we work with Azure, so it was easier, it was cheaper, and it was faster. If we decided to do it here on premise, it will take us longer, just to provide that infrastructure that it will be necessary. And the other thing is that it's more flexible, because as you remember, when we started looking this approach, we thought about how many or the amount of data, and at the end we were extracting more information, more data, just to be or constructing a more robust model. So it was easier, and it was also flexible. So it was, I think it was the best approach.
And talk to me about sort of your business operations, right? How did they benefit by taking this approach in terms of having this sort of visibility and having these dashboards available? What were some of the decisions they were able to maybe look into and sort of get over the hump or get to the finish lines to execute on? How did the the data that our teams work together eventually operationalize some of the decisions, right, that were made in the field?
Well, I think that the best of this at the end it was our data, you know. So it was not like a plan model or something like that. It was our raw data that you transformed into value, you know. So it was just in front of us. So when you guys remember that you presented the different solutions or you present the different conclusions, everybody was, oh yeah, you're right. You know, oh yeah, I saw that before. Oh yeah, you're right. So it was easier for us just to make these kind of decisions, you know. So I guess that's the way to put it in this kind of solution or projects or initiatives, you know, working with our own data because everybody was, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, you are right. Yeah, let's make this decision and see how at the end it will work, you know. So I think that it was easier for us and also to make some decisions, sometimes some hard decisions, you know, because at the end, this information that you provide us, it was for us to make some good decisions, you know, or have more information to make a better decisions.
Makes sense. And maybe could you talk more about what this initiative ended up helping you in terms of unlocking some of the other projects that you were looking to explore with Microsoft and Snowflake and some of the SAPs of the world, right? How did this get some of the more conservative people over the line in terms of the value of IT, in terms of bringing people together to validate operations, come up with new decisions, or pick up or unlock value, right, or even sales that might have not been achieved before?
Yeah, for the IT team, this was we can say the tipping point, you know, because at the end we saw the value of how you guys present the information, or how do we provide value within the company through IT. So we end up working with data lake initiative. So we are in the middle of that because of you guys. That it's necessary, you know, just to continue this on and on and on information processes. And for the business, yeah, they have a lot of information right now, KPIs, you know, just to make again decision based upon not only history but also based upon other models, or to see in the future if you modify this process or you make these kind of decisions, how it will look in the future.
Thanks, Jose. And Tom, I guess, you know, the next step for us obviously will be around scalability. So maybe can you talk more about how Microsoft helps you scale on that data lake and, you know, sort of the next generation tools for us from going from, say, 3 business units to all 15 business units? What has Microsoft been working on over the last 2-3 years to enable that to get to the next level, to start having those CEO, CFO level conversations?
Yeah, you bring up some really good points there, Ali. It goes back to what Jose is mentioning around, you know, the data. One, he's talking about empowering it in the vision that they see fit to run their operations, and that's where I would say that being here at Microsoft a couple of years, we do a lot of things great, but the data foundation we do exceptionally well. So empowering customers to be able to look at it that way, and he mentioned kind of the flexibility where they are from a cost perspective. You know, pay as you go on some of these services, it allows you to scale the right things in the appropriate manner. So you can kind of cultivate that. And there's also been a lot of kind of work with other partners and even some acquisitions in the space that, as you look at, maybe we want to pull in some partner data or supplier data and really connect some of these parts of the supply chain that have been, you know, only through transactional ERP information before, and you don't have full purview or visibility to what's going on. You can actually start bringing in data sets from your customers and from your partners and start kind of standardizing them to your own models and how you see them to be best fit to operate, so that it's scaling beyond just maybe a couple of the business units, and it encompasses now all 13 with suppliers. And it all fits within the lake, within uniformity and having connectivity that you need to operate in an effective manner.
Tom, could you maybe talk more about the common data model that's less known? I mean, I actually discovered it during the Progresso implementation, and how that's going to help customers like Progresso, you know, scale and make sure they can do more with not only on monetizing the data, but from a sustainability perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So the common data models that are kind of industry standard and specific, so that When you're working with suppliers, you might have, there's millions of rows of columns of data that you're looking at, and it's going to be really hard to standardize that information flow into your own tools. The common data models kind of set a lot of that framework so it can easily analyze and kind of configure things so that the speaking and data transfer can be very native. So it optimizes a lot of processes, and from just like the sustainability standpoint of it, right, is that you're not wasting a ton of time kind of chasing down information, trying to figure out how these things fit together. It can speed up the adoption of these very quickly.
Thanks, Simon. Another thing to also mention on the sustainability side is for every ton of cement we don't end up producing that doesn't sell, right, we're also saving almost like a half ton of CO2, right? So from a carbon credits perspective, cement is one of those industrial verticals where a lot can be availed, especially if carbon credits is the monetization objective for the company. I guess moving forward, since we're, this was supposed to be a 20-30 minute webinar, and of course, happy to take any of your questions that you might have. What might you consider be next with Throughput and Microsoft? Maybe talk more about how demand sensing is an area that you might be looking into, or just what is the general vision of Progresso, right, where you're headed as a company, and your vision as a CIO of the company of where you would like to take the company.
Okay, like I told you before, one of the main or one of the initiatives that we are in the middle of, it's constructing this data lake. So we're gonna keep on building, we're gonna keep on extracting more information within the whole company, and that's one of the things. And the other one is just like you mentioned before, just to expand our technological footprint within the company. We're also in the middle of expanding ourselves internationally. So that's another main goal and challenge that we have right now, just how to expand our architecture, just to have those new business here. And also because of that, the architecture is being it's going to be more open to different providers. We're heavily thinkers that not one provider is fit or used for everybody. So we're just looking for different options, and that's why, because I told you before that we are heavily SAP users, but the retail side we are running under Microsoft Dynamics. So right now also we are open up to some Oracle solutions. So that's one of the other things, just to be more open, more flexible, and also at the end what the business needs, So that's how do we integrate those solutions from point to point.
Yeah, and just to bring some perspective around what brands you push, it's not only your own brand, right? In your 400 stores, I've seen everything from Milwaukee Tools to Kohler to PPG to Dawn. There's a lot of US and international products that you are pushing through that. So maybe on that side with the partnership with Dynamics, right? Maybe how do you envision that tying into, say, like a common data model or some of Microsoft's capabilities with other partners, tracking some of these bigger corporations, how they could actually speed up your supply chain and improve even the contribution margins if you had access to that external data, right? We just started to look into external data around GDP and some of the other things to generate more business. So from an overall perspective, I guess to summarize, what do you think is the business value, right? Besides the time to value of getting everything on a data lake and showing to the C-suite across 14 business units, here's the potential of freeing up X amount of trucks, right? There was a lot of trucks, right? But from your perspective, how does a digitally enabled, throughput enabled, Microsoft enabled system help you as an overall business grow and free up cash flow?
Well, for us, it's just to provide good information for the business to make good decisions. So that's and it will depend on where or which business or which line of business are you talking about. So that's maybe one of the main goals that we have, just provide good information so they can make good decisions, And the other thing is sometimes people see as the information as a silos or as their own line of business information, But right now we are thinking about the whole. Sometimes you need information, I don't know, from the first point or from the query, if we can say that, and maybe the information from or the retail business people need this information. So that's how do we integrate, and at the end it's how to monetize this information, you know. So it's getting there, it's getting there, but it's gonna be a really challenge. It's gonna be sometimes complicated, but it's where we want to be.
And I know you touched so many different parts of the supply chain. I've seen everything from ports, right? Optimizing on the ports. I've seen your packaging division where you're making bags, right? I've seen the cement trucks and the fleets. I've seen the hardware stores, the actual vertical mills. I mean, you name the operation and supply chain, you have it, right? From a digital perspective, I guess probably to wrap up before questions, how easy was it to actually get started, right? When you first came in and you thought about this end-to-end project before, you know, you met Throughput and Microsoft, what was your expectations around the challenge, right, of getting something like this going? And within the 3 to 6 months of where we delivered you value, what did you actually find, and what else did you discover along the way in terms of what else could be done?
Okay, I think one of the things that we were like really stuck is how do we provide this value through information, and that's where you guys came here and help us. You know, that's maybe well, I think the most important things that you gave us to us. And because of that, we start looking backwards to see how do we prepare on a technological side, you know, just to be and provide that information. So, and also this integration, this point to point, I've been here, like I told you, 13 years, and it's been, I don't know, the last 5 or 6 years that we have this in mind. We have been working really, really, really hard, you know, just to digitalize the whole process, you know. So it's not an easy challenge. It can be done. We're not there yet, but we're in the middle of it, you know.
Thanks, Jose. And Tom, just maybe to wrap it up, what are you seeing across other industrial customers? Are they looking to go more end-to-end? Are they starting to think more demand sensing first, focusing on dynamics and extrapolating backwards? I mean, you see everything from the Microsoft side of things.
Yeah, there's a couple points that Jose brought up I think are really important, is that, you know, you do have to kind of start somewhere in terms of where a step change will really happen. And there's no easy way to fix looking at the end-to-end visibility and locking it overnight. And Jose and Cemento Progreso, it's a great example of, they're highly diversified in terms of different business functions. They're going vertical within their supply chain. It's a lot of pieces to pull together. So I love the approach of saying, we need to empower employees today around the processes that are kind of core to business and not going to change, and provide them the insights they needed. And that will continue to drive, you know, top line in terms of availability of product and better service. But then as you kind of get smarter and more mature in that sense and start really connecting those pieces together, then you look at the AI intelligence and all the data and the right insights to drive better bottom line improvement. And that's where things are eventually going to head. So I love the approach of starting with connecting the data, because you're going to light up and unlock a lot of capabilities just from that point, graduating to the point of empowering employees who are still running the business day to day, because that will not go away, and then bring in the right tools and partners and solutions like the Throughput and some of the dynamic SaaS solutions that are out there. And the SAPs of the world will always be, everyone's going to be important in this space, but it needs to be a better together story, because I don't think anyone can do it alone at this point. It's become too complex. The demands are too high. We've optimized in our own silos and bubbles as best we can, and it's time to come together at this point.
Makes absolute sense. Happy to take some of these questions. Let me see. I guess one of the questions I had come up on WhatsApp while we were talking was pulling the data, ingesting the data. Just, I think, more questions around that. How is that done very conveniently? Jose, how did you sort of bypass the typical IT process of connecting the data to get visualizations to actually just getting it done and providing that business value within a month or two, right? Well, how did you make that happen? Because typically it's all about connecting the data initially and seeing how we can get there. How did you sort of bypass it and make it very easy to communicate to the business operations with?
Well, I think it was not easy. My team, because I was responsible for the whole thing, but I have a good team that they manage, how to extract that information. So it's not easy. I can say it's not easy, but they really manage, they really work hard, just to provide that information within, I don't know, I remember it was 2 or 3 months that you were guys able to just to start to consume that information that we provided. But it's sometimes it's depends on the we can say on the priorities. For us, it was a really high priority, so we assigned the right amount of resources and also the right amount of people, just to be able to deliver. And because it was like we can say a proof of concept cycle, it was really on a, we can say, an express or really fast project or initiative. So that timelines were really tight, but we managed. But it was not easy. So its priorities, everybody was focused on that.
And Jose, I know you have a mighty team, but how many people are in your IT organization, right, that made this happen?
Well, we were responsible to extract the information was 2 people, just to do that kind of job. But on the we can say on the backside, there was like 10 people, just to pointing, if we can say that, where that information was, and where to extract or where the tables were. So it was just 2 people responsible just to extract the information and give it to you. But more than 10 people were on the backside, just we can say pointing where the information was.
Incredible. And keep in mind, you went end-to-end with just 12 people. I know a lot of CIO organizations are much, much bigger. So I mean, they're hundreds, if not thousands, right? Quick question on the data lake again. What are the data sources fed into the data lake, and what is the end game with this data?
Okay. We're using a Snowflake right now. We're extracting information from SAP, which is, like I told you, the biggest footprint of here in Cementos Progreso. We are also extracting information right now from Microsoft Dynamics, and that's about it. But and when we mention SAP, it's not only the S/4HANA. We have like 10 solutions, different solutions from SAP. So basically, those are the information that we are extracting and put it into the data lake.
Yeah. Maybe to wrap up, and last question is, maybe could you talk more about your Microsoft Dynamics footprint, right? And
Okay.
how you ended up going with Dynamics more recently over, say, an Oracle NAF, which has been your, I guess, your stalwart in the ecosystem. I'd love to understand more on that.
Okay. We're using Microsoft Dynamics for the retail side. There's a franchise here in Guatemala that it's, we can say 450 point of sales or hardware stores, and we own 20 of those hardware stores. So on those hardware stores, we have the Dynamics, we have the point of sales, we have all the inventory and all the, we can say, accounting solutions, also for our hardware. We have also Dynamics, and we're planning to expand it to a more, we can say, a more expert solution in terms of demand, in terms of supply, in terms of inventory. So that's where we are seeing Microsoft in the future. And why we end up choosing Microsoft, because like I told you before, depends on the business needs. We choose which providers fit best for those. And for this kind of business, it was Dynamics and not the other way. So.
And I'll hand it over to Tom, but maybe to talk more about the strengths of Dynamics, and Jose, you can carry it on.
Yeah, I think I appreciate the words there, Jose. What's been interesting to me is I've been here a couple of years now in my career, which I didn't explain well enough, but I've been across a lot of retail and CPG companies in my time. And what I enjoy about the Dynamics approach is that there's acknowledgement that there's going to be a lot of interwoven systems kind of layered on top of each other, because that the legacy world that we live in is just a reality. And so the kind of focus from Dynamics around, let's pivot from the idea that it's not all about core foundational operations. There's a lot of needs that are very acute in a couple different industries, and a lot of it is driven around just visibility and ability to forecast correctly and figure out how to move inventory around. And a lot of the times we will have the perfect technology or really good technology, and there will be times that partners need to get involved as well to kind of infuse some of their intelligence. So it's been humbling just to kind of watch. It's always the better together story, which has made us much more modular and kind of fitting in to where customers need us versus saying it's got to be this or that, right? And that's just the path forward.
Righty, I guess to wrap up, and I've been saying that multiple times now, but how is the best way to get in contact with you, Jose, in case any of our audience would like to learn more about doing something? Because at the end of the day, what you're doing is pretty much cutting edge, right? We don't typically see customers who really have that end-to-end vision. And same with you, Tom. What's a good way to get to someone like yourself who's worked at PepsiCo and Amazon in the past and seen everything on the end-to-end supply chain side? Over to you, Jose.
Okay, for me, there's my LinkedIn profile. You can find me there and just send me a message so we can get in touch. So I don't have any problem just sharing our experience. So there's my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the easiest way to find me as well. It's LinkedIn. I eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff all day, every day. So happy to continue the conversation with customers and partners alike.
Yeah, I have a LinkedIn addiction, so probably easiest way to find so definitely, if not, Ali at throughput.ai is pretty responsive as well. Okay, I'll take this last question and we'll wrap up. For other cement and building material companies out there that are interested in following your digitization journey, how might we kick off more intelligently to also achieve initial results? So again, it's a speed of value. Does Throughput and/or Microsoft have quick pilots or fast track programs for the early wins to prove out ROIs to our CFO and CEOs this year and not first next? On our side, 90 days to get you the results, and Jose Serra can talk about how we did 3 business units in 6 months, right? So we're pretty fast. Tom, on your side, what are some of the initiatives coming on? I mean, Microsoft for Startups has been so supportive of us over the last 18 months. Over to you.
No, that's a great first way is Microsoft for Startups. That's a great program, fully supportive and so innovative. The other piece is that we do a lot of workshops, right? So it's not product pushing or anything like that. It's really taking a step back. Let's take a half a day, look at the problems, diagnose, where are the most acute gaps, and figure out what the POCs are in terms of solution fit, and figure out who to pull in. So it's always an ecosystem effort, and we're always happy to do that. We've got global coverage in terms of whatever region we need to go work with. We can find the right parties to get involved. Absolutely.
Excellent. And I believe, Jose, Microsoft did set up a webinar or some sort of workshop for you after when we started to explore scaling up. Is that correct? The Latin America team came in to explain the opportunities.
Yeah, it was one. And also getting back to the question that you mentioned before, it was we can say a pilot, a 6-month pilot, where we took us probably 2 months just to be ready to extract that information. So if any company is really interested on this before getting to you, Throughput, they can start, preparing that information so it will be faster. Yeah.
Microsoft does a wonderful job doing that. I guess I'll head over to you, Tom. Thank you again for hosting this on behalf of Microsoft, and love for you to wrap it.
No, it was great seeing you guys. I always loved hearing these stories come together the way they have. I think that the biggest takeaway for me is that the vision is kind of really important. So, Jose came with a very specific mission and goal for the team, working with partners that can actually execute that in a quick fashion. I think time to value has never been more important. And then having a trusted partner that can kind of help you along some of the data journey, right, is pretty core and foundational to the whole thing. So I've beaten this message to death, but it is something that is a truly collaborative effort. And hope to have many more of these stories to share together in the near future. It was great seeing you guys.
Likewise. Thank you, everyone, for your time, for attending, and looking forward to connecting with you at a different webinar. Thanks, Jose. Thanks, Tom.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.